awkward denial of history or silence about history and an inability to express the history that they've lived through.
So while there are so many silences, how do we interpret the silences and the pauses, and in that, how do we construct citizenship for women, Wazira?
That's a big question. I'm not sure I'm the right person to really explore the silences around partition. I grew up in a divided family, and so I grew up always trying to cross the border, and India was never the other country. It was always very much a part of us. And I've always thought of Pakistan itself as a very Indian concept, something that really the intimacy is something that's very, very important to understand. Also the hurt that you were speaking about earlier. I'm always struck when there are comparative partition conferences, and you have, for example, Palestinians and Israelis there, and Indians and Pakistanis there. The Indians and Pakistanis are sitting together and cracking jokes and swapping stories, and by no means feel, at least at sort of the level of intimacy when people get together, the kind of separation that you have in, even, for example, our divided Ireland, and so on and so forth, the kind of rifts that exist. I think that's changing. And so the intergenerational work that Anam is doing is probably very important, because there is a way in which partition is being remembered to bolster certain kinds of nationalist projects, and also as a narrative that can be produced and reproduced to inscribe forms of difference within as well as across national borders. So understanding the politics of remembering and grappling with it, I think, is becoming more and more urgent. I came to the project 2 decades ago, really, with this sense that I didn't know enough. If I looked at the literature on refugee studies, for instance, in the entire field of refugee studies, there was hardly an article or a mention of the subcontinent's experience. Really, we were overshadowed by writings on the European experience of the refugee, and then the refugee figures in other contexts across the globe. But the subcontinent was a missing piece back then, 2 decades ago. So I was really driven by a desire to investigate, to research, not just thinking about the stories that I had grown up with, but to go into the archives. So I was driven with my research was very much archival driven, although I did oral histories, which were very important to opening up unsettled bits that required further investigation. So much of my journey with my research was a journey of discovery, to realize that, in fact, people were moving for much, much longer than we had been told, that borders had been constructed, in fact, to stop people moving, that the question that had driven partition was resolving the Muslim minority question, and that question never really got resolved. And so when you talked about citizenship, when citizenship laws were being drafted, really the problem was no one knew who was Indian, who was Pakistani. There were people that were on the move, and so what you ended up with was a lot of people who became stateless, and a lot of people who had to fight long court cases just to establish their right of belonging wherever they ended up being. And where they ended up being was not always of their choosing, because borders were being constructed in the first decade after partition. So it was a long, as I write in the title of my book, The Long Partition, it was a long process. Which was made by us, made by our political leaders, by our bureaucratic process, by people like us. So understanding that the political landscape that we live in is one that's been made by us, and therefore what unfolds from here on, we have a role to play. This history is important for helping us understand, as well as becoming political agents in shaping the futures that unfold. The Bengal borderland is particularly important, I think, for questions of citizenship and statelessness, which I think remains unresolved. We still have stateless people who are neither Indian nor Pakistani. Both states refuse to recognize them and give them citizenship. Those stateless people or people in between are important, I think, not just because one could say there are just a few left, or there are very few stateless people in South Asia, but I think that status of statelessness is one which has a lot to teach all of us who may feel comfortable, settled, secure in our national belonging, to know that what we call Indian, or that which we call Pakistani, or that which we call Bangladeshi, we have made them, we have forged them. They are national projects that are still in the making, and sometimes in the making in ways that need to be contested, that need to be challenged, that we need to be involved in many different ways. That's also part of the work of being citizens of a region, of our planet. I think increasingly, as we begin to think about belonging, not just in terms of a very close sense of nation. I think Tagore was one of the most important thinkers for insisting on a human understanding of belonging, one that transcended the narrow bounds of nation, and the figure that we really need to recuperate for thinking about how we move forward in a rather troubled human world. Right.